Romans 12, 1 and 2, the Apostle Paul here is talking about, therefore I urge you, brothers, sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies, the flesh, as a living sacrifice, to move it into faith. How often don't we within our lives, we sort of get the negative attitudes with each other? How often within our lives, as I already said, we want that instant gratification. Whether it's the food that we have, whether it's the nicotine that we need, whether it's the alcohol that we take in, whether it's the pleasure of watching certain movies or TV shows that you shouldn't be watching, pornography, all those different things, we tend to sometimes want to have that pleasure. And that's when we live in the flesh. But Paul says, offer your bodies, your flesh, as a living sacrifice in faith, which is holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Verse 2 is the biggie. Do not conform any longer to the patterns of this world, but be transformed. Some of you watch the movies Transformers. Some of you younger kids maybe have watched. What have they got? Like 3 or 4 Transformer movies. I've liked to watch them. How the cars change into these robots and whatnot. I mean, pretty cool how it all takes place, and the cinematography with it all. Transform. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Jerusalem, Babylon. Faith, flesh. And within that, Jesus Christ says to us that we have to have a transformation, a metamorphosis. It's the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. It's the idea of about 10, 12 years ago, there was a TV show, and I don't remember the name of it, but it was one of the first shows that came out about changing this room in somebody's house. Some of you remember that show? You know, you could send your name in and they'd come out and they would redo your whole living room. Some of you remember that? Am I dreamy? Yeah, okay, well thank you. A few of you remember that. Appreciate it. It went from changing one room of the house, and a few years later we get Ty, is his name? Right? With the big bus? What's that name of the show? Extreme Home Makeover. Yeah, the first was just a show about changing a room, and then they do a whole extreme home makeover. They come in and they level the house down and they build this huge, $500,000 or more house for these families. That's an extreme makeover. That's what Paul is talking about here in Romans chapter 12. An extreme makeover. Therefore, don't conform to the patterns of this world. And my question to you is, what really rules our thinking? What really guides our principles? What is the foundation for what we believe in? It's interesting right now because within the military, on the Air Force side, our motto is integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. Integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. There's a struggle within the Air Force and within the military as a whole with integrity. There's a struggle with integrity. And a lot of the higher-ups are asking the question, why is that? Why is there a problem with integrity? Integrity is doing that which you say you're going to do it when you say you're going to have it done. That's part of integrity. Integrity is saying, I'm not going to do drugs, so when you have to go for the golden flow or the urinalysis test, I know it's nickname golden flow, when you go for that they're not going to find drugs in your system. But the question is, being asked by higher-ups, what's wrong? Because our motto is integrity first, but we're lacking integrity. And some of us as chaplains, when we get together, we like to talk about the fact, why are we lacking integrity? What's the foundation for integrity? For me, it's this. This is the foundation for integrity. And without this, everybody's foundation is a little bit different for integrity. But when I accepted Christ as my Lord and Savior, this becomes the foundation for integrity. This becomes that which my life has to be transformed into. The extreme home makeover has to be from this, not from what society says. It's from this. Do not conform any longer to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So what happens back here in Daniel? Back here in Daniel. Daniel chapter 1. Nebuchadnezzar is trying to change their thinking, their loyalty, their lifestyle. But Daniel resolves, verse 8. Daniel resolved not to defile himself. 17 years old, and he's standing up to the king. What's going to happen? If the king doesn't like the idea, his head's gone. He resolves that he's not going to eat the royal food. And he asks the chief official for permission not to defile himself. Why didn't he want to defile himself? This food had been offered to the pagan gods in the temples, to Marduk. The food had been offered there. The wine had been offered. It was food of uncleanly food, pigs, that they were eating. So Daniel and his friends say, no, we're not going to eat that. You can take our life, but we're not going to eat it. We have an integrity. An integrity, why? Because it rests on what we learned as a child of who Jehovah God is and what He wants within our lives. Now God, verse 9, had caused the official to show favor and sympathy to Daniel. But the official told David, I'm afraid of my Lord and King who has assigned me your food and drink. In other words, the official is saying, hey, if something goes wrong, I'm the one in trouble. I'm going to be beheaded with you. Why should he see you, Nebuchadnezzar, see you looking worse than the other young men your age? And the king will have my head. Then Daniel said to the guard whom the chief official had appointed over them, test us for 10 days. Nowadays, a lot of people are doing what's called the Daniel fast. Some of you maybe have heard it. I know a few of the congregation has done the Daniel fast. Comes from the book of Daniel here. Daniel says, test us. For 10 days, give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Compare our appearance with the other men who eat the royal food. Treat your servants in accordance with what you see. So he agreed, and he tested them for 10 days. After 10 days, they looked healthier and better nourished than any of the other men. So the guard took away their choice food, gave them wine, took away their choice food and their wine, and gave them vegetables instead. That's a hard one for me. I'm a meat lover. Yeah, I'm a meat lover. We're just getting a third of a cow again, and we love to cook up those hamburgers and fries. I mean, hamburgers and steaks. But the Daniel diet is no meat. It's the vegetables, fruits and vegetables. Verse 18. At the end of the time set by the king to bring them in, the chief official presented them to the king, Nebuchadnezzar. The king talked with them. He found none as equal to Daniel. This is interesting. What was the one thing that the king's trying to change of them? Their loyalty by changing their name. But right here, what name is being used? Their Hebrew name. Why? Because they're staying faithful to Jehovah God. The king, Nebuchadnezzar, found out nobody was as wise or as intelligent or as understanding. He found them 10 times better than all of the other magicians, enchanters in the whole kingdom. 2 worlds we live in. Jerusalem, Babylon. Faith, the flesh. Turn back to Romans 12. One more part of Romans 12 we did not read, which fits right in here. Romans 12, verse 2. Do not conform any longer to the patterns of this world. So don't conform to the patterns of what society is telling us is right and wrong, but be transformed to what this is. Then what does the verse go on and say? Then you will be able to test and approve what is God's will.